Hello.
Hey, Flora.
Hey, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good, I'm good. Thanks for joining today. Welcome. Um, Camille, are you there, available?
Hello.
Hi.
How
How
are
are you?
you?
I'm good, I'm good. Welcome. Um, and I see it's Guy That, but I'm assuming that's not your name.
Yes. Hello?
Hi.
Am I the only one here?
No, there's a
Oh,
few
okay.
here. Uh,
Okay.
can you see the screen?
I can. I can see you. Yes.
Okay. Sorry, what's your name?
My name is Jim.
Jim, nice to meet you.
Nice
Uh,
to meet you.
all right. I usually give it a couple of minutes, but I feel like we can get started at least with introductions. I am Flora. I found I don't know what it's called, Redo Love, through my own journey of getting divorced and then having to start to date and starting to realize how many attachment issues I had. Um, and now I do this, totally change my career and my life based on the work that I do with you guys and I offer you guys. Sorry, I see that my thing is getting a little stuck. Um, I would love to hear your name, where you're calling from, where you're calling from, and what your attachment style is if you know it. So Noah, do you mind if we start with you? Noah? Oh, maybe he can't hear me. Camille, do you mind if we start with you?
Sure thing. You said name, attachment style, and where I'm calling from?
Yeah.
My name's Camille. Flora and I work together on my attachment style of anxious. Anxious attachment style, but I'm calling from Phoenix, Arizona.
Thanks, Camille.
Mm-hmm.
Noah, I don't know if you can hear me. Maybe not. Okay. Jim, do you mind introducing yourself?
Sure. I'm Jim. I'm in New Jersey. Also recently divorced and in a new relationship where it has become very apparent that I am anxiously attached.
Gotcha. All
So,
right.
yeah.
Good to know. Thank you. Um, Marcel, I'd love, hi. You made it. You made it.
Hello. Yeah, a little bit too late, but I made it.
No,
Yeah,
no,
hi.
you made it just on time. We just started.
Okay.
Do you mind introducing yourself, telling people where you are and what your attachment style is?
Sure. I'm calling from Antwerp in Belgium in Europe. And the attachment style I'm working on with Flora is anxious, joining the club.
Yeah, seems like we're all anxious. No, I haven't heard from you yet. Are you comfortable to
Yeah.
introduce yourself?
Yeah. My name is Noah, and I live in South Lake Tahoe, California, and anxious.
Anxious. All right, we're all anxious here today. All right, cool. I have some good stories for you. We can all revel in our avoidant experiences together. So, as most of you might know by now, I'm primarily anxious or was. I like to think I've moved into security, but it's a forever process, right? So I think that's something that we should all know. All right, so let me share my screen then, and let's get started with this stuff. I welcome communication, so feel free to ask questions, feel free to butt in, feel free to put stuff in the chat. Let me actually open the chat. And I'm happy to answer along the way. So, first thing I'm going to ask you guys is, when was the last time you people pleased?
I am currently about to people please, or I'm in the middle of people pleasing as I'm on this podcast or webinar.
Amazing. How, do you mind telling us what's going on?
No, I mean, sure, why not? I am currently I'm charging my electric car so that I can drive an hour and 20 minutes to drop off an office work chair with the woman I am seeing, as well as some special treats that I picked up for her along the way. Honestly, because, I try to say that it's, because I want her to be in a comfortable work chair when she works remote at home. But, I'd be lying if I didn't think that there was some type of a transactional component to it, no matter how much I try to deny it.
Amazing. And that's
So,
perfect. Perfect.
yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Love it. Yeah. This is what we do, right? This is what we do when we're in relationship. This is what we do to get relationship. This is what we do to keep relationship. This is what we do in hopes that we will get a reaction response that that benefits us in some way too, right? I have an aunt, right, who is a giver. You can call her in a moment's notice. She will drop everything and she will just, like, do whatever you need her to do. But she's resentful and angry and quick-tempered, right? But she never says no. She never says no, right? So, you have to wonder what effect that really has on her, right? And the rest of us as we people please, right? And so we'll start with the neuroscience kind of aspects of it and what's going on in our brain. Our nervous system generally has three stages, or three spots that we kind of cycle through, depending on what's going on. The ventral vagal is I'm safe to be myself, right? Like, this is where we're all feeling normal, good, in a flow state, we feel secure when we are in our ventral vagal part of our nervous system. When we move into the sympathetic nervous system, this very much relates to the anxious attachment style. This is fight or flight mode, right? This is, I need to survive this, right? I need whatever I have to do, however I have to be, I need to survive this, right? And then there's the dorsal vagal, which is more associated with the avoidant attachment style. It's also the oldest part of our brain, also called the lizard brain. This is where we go into shutdown and where we completely give up. Now, the other part that is less talked about, but also very much exists, is the fawn response, right? So the fawn response floods your system with stress hormones while forcing you to appear calm and agreeable, right? So a lot of times I relate this to stage fright, right? Where you are flooded with nerves, but you got to get on stage. And so you are kind of like kind of stuck, but people can't really read it on you. And then you do your thing and you get off stage and you're like, I was so nervous. And people are like, oh, I couldn't tell at all. I didn't notice that at all, But what happens here, and why people pleasing feels so exhausting, it's you're saying yes, you really mean no, or you're doing something you really don't want to do. And you're flooded with dopamine and oxytocin as a reward, but you don't really, so it feels good, so you do it again, but you don't really want to be doing it, right? So when someone accepts your people-pleasing behavior, your brain gets a hit of these, the dopamine, the oxytocin, but as time goes on, you need bigger and bigger doses to feel safe. It's like an addiction cycle, right? So has anybody like noticed this? Like they didn't want to do something, they did it, somebody was happy, and then they felt good. Noah, yes?
Yeah,
Likely.
it's funny. It's funny you say this because I never really put this together. But I was a pastor for 27 years, and you're talking about being on stage. Pretty big church, and speaking 3 times on Sundays, three services that we'd have, and of the things I got to do, it was my least favorite, but people loved it, and so that was the cycle. Like,
Right.
but it was rewarding, but it was exhausting
Right.
also.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
wasn't what I loved doing.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah. That makes perfect sense.
So
Yeah. And, I wonder, right? Like something I would urge you to consider is what were you doing it because you really loved it, or were you doing it because you loved the approval?
it's a great question. Yeah, and certainly I do know this. When you were talking about relationships earlier, um, so I'm what I assumed when I started dating here was that I could date several women at one time and narrow that down. Um, but what I found is going sort of living back into my 18-year-old Noah. Um, that was the attention, the female attention, was a huge self-esteem boost for me.
Mhm.
So now that I've sort of narrowed down to one woman
Mhm.
that I want to pursue, um, I've had a hard time. Like I wrote and talked to the other women, told them
Mhm. Mhm.
what
Mhm.
I want to pursue. Um, but I still find myself responding gladly to the baits that they,
Uh-huh.
when they want
Yeah.
to talk or text or whatever. As
Yeah.
opposed to, I know the best thing to do is I need to move on from those and really,
Focus on the one. But yeah, you're getting validation basically from the other communication. Feels good, taking the dopamine hit. But
totally,
yeah, but
totally
probably is exhausting and probably there's a fear there as well.
totally exhausting. I
Yeah.
mean, at the end of the day, yeah. Yeah, and
No.
I'm sure other people have had that experience, just like when you start dating, especially if you're using an app, it's like having another job,
Right.
trying
Right.
to,
Yeah.
it's crazy.
Yeah. Marcel, did you want to say something?
Um, on the funny, you mean?
Huh? I don't, you unmuted, so I'm just wondering if you want to say something.
No,
Oh,
not
okay.
necessarily. But on the funny, you mean? Because yeah,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
that is something I used to do often. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Um, I, there's not a specific example that comes to mind, but it's basically been my life.
Right.
And something I'm now working on with you, obviously. Um, funny anecdote that I can maybe tell about my previous relationship, and that's actually something that really struck me. But in hindsight, is that my ex-girlfriend sometimes used to say, "Everything is always fine for you." I hate that
Because you were doing what?
because I was always saying yes.
Right. Right.
So that's kind of a sentence that still comes to mind, and she was actually right.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
She was
Yeah.
actually right. I should have I should have better said I should have said boundaries more in the past. Yeah, say
Yeah.
no when I actually want to say no
Uh-huh.
instead of just saying yes. And I can relate to what Noah just said. It is extremely exhausting to be this people pleaser.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you totally disregard your own needs, and you, yeah, in
Yeah.
essence, you just totally self-abandon.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, that's the big thing, right? In pleasing others without checking in with ourselves, whether we want it, whether we want to do it, whether it's really coming from our own self, we end up abandoning ourselves doing for others, kind of like my aunt, let's say, right? Like she's resentful, she's nasty, she's quick to anger, she's all these things, but she'll never say no. I mean, I don't like, is that good? You know?
Yeah, and maybe also to link that to one of the videos that you shared on people pleasing in relation to being kind of a sort of manipulation.
Yeah,
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 to get what you want. Yeah, I'm guilty I was guilty as charged.
right, right.
Sometimes I did it just to get something out of it, and yeah, that's a sort of manipulation.
It is. It's a
But
full.
I didn't see it like that at the time. I
Right.
realize this now in hindsight, but back then I had no idea. It was much more, let's say, subconsciously.
Yeah,
This manipulation was not a conscious thing.
and we're gonna go into that exact thing next. Sorry, Camille, did you want to say something?
Oh, let's see.
You unmute. So
Oh, there you go. I was just gonna say that even like attempting to break that habit too has been really difficult, and actually set some of those boundaries. I had a situation recently where somebody, I won't even get into the story, but somebody's like, well, you always do that, or you always like do this for me type thing.
uh-huh.
And I said, well, I don't want to do that anymore. Like, I don't like I was doing something else and I didn't have time to. So I,
Yeah,
just breaking that habit is really difficult too,
yeah,
because people know you as the people pleaser. People know you as the somebody that's just going to drop things and come to your rescue type thing. And I'm like, I don't want to do that anymore. But like setting boundaries for myself and like choosing myself
uh-huh.
is really difficult because I just feel guilty.
Yeah,
I feel selfish.
yeah. So two
Yeah.
things, are coming up, right? It's one, changing behavior. It's going to affect the people around you because
Yeah.
they know you as such, as in a
Yeah.
certain way. And when you change that behavior, it's confronting to them, right? And then also in people pleasing, we feel responsible for other people's emotions and reactions, right? And so we're people pleasing because we don't want to upset them. So then when we start setting boundaries and we start saying no, it becomes, we get a reaction and we feel responsible for that reaction. And then it becomes our fault. And then it goes into guilt. And where did we pick all this up? Childhood, right? And Marcel, I said, we're going to get into that part later, like survival, right? This is what in childhood we learned these skills and skills, if you will, or coping mechanisms. And what they really are was a survival mechanism to be accepted within our family units, right? So people, when they say, when your mom is saying to you, be nice, she's saying be nice, right? But partially what she's saying is your feelings don't matter. Your feelings are wrong, right? Because be nice despite how you feel, right? It's not just be nice, right? There's that implication, right? Don't be selfish. Your needs don't matter, right? Because if you are going to want more of that piece of food, or if you are going to want more of that candy or whatever it is in childhood, you're being selfish, even if you're hungry, right? This one, I think, applies much more to women, but possibly to men in work mode, let's say, maybe maybe, but that don't make waves, right? I can't explain how many times, even in this stage of my life, that I still do this, where I placate and make things okay when things aren't okay. And when I say this, I want to clarify that, whenever I have conscious understanding of what's going on, I don't do it. However, it is so built into our system to just be like, oh, cool, cool, yeah, everything, yeah, cool. And even if somebody's being aggressive, and as women in particular, right? Even if somebody's being nasty, you do everything you can to not make waves. You do everything you can to like make it cool and make it easy. I went on this really bad date with this guy who's super aggressive. This happened like a couple of years ago. And he ended up walking me to my car. Like, I tried to cut the date off. I tried to say goodbye. He's like, let me walk you to your car. He walked me to my car. And then he asks for a hug. And I'm like just trying to get away from this guy and just trying to like get in my car and go. But I said yes. Why did I say yes to giving this guy a hug? Like, why? It makes no sense. I didn't like him. I wasn't interested, but I did it anyway, right? And again, it's just this like desire to just like not have a fight, not make a problem, not get into it. And so there's an aspect of danger in that too, and we'll leave that to the side for the moment, but there's a big aspect of people pleasing in there. Go ahead, Marcel.
Yeah, I recognize that. Yeah, my ex relationship, she could go, high, low, high, low, high, low. And from time to time, she had these, I call them episodes, where she could just start out of the blue, ranting at me, um, picking on the smallest flaws, and then just go, 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 go. So after a while, what you just do is you just try to ensure that those episodes don't occur anymore. So what you do is you just try and hide and see, okay, walk on eggshells just to avoid those,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
instead of just pushing back
you
what I
bring
should have done.
up a big one, the here, and I'm sure you don't have the exact saying where you are, but we have a saying here called happy wife, happy life.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
exactly that. No, we say that as well.
Oh yeah, do you really? It's funny.
Yeah.
So I think for men, that's a big one, right? Like you just, yes, okay, yeah, yell at me, I'll take it, I'll be the bad guy. Like, okay, but we're not really communicating, right? We're not really saying our piece. We're not really talking about how we feel. We're just placating. Yeah, okay, yeah, it's my fault. Yeah, I should have thrown out the garbage. Yeah, sorry. And then you go and play video games or hide or, whatever. Go talk to your friends.
And you know what? Even now I'm speaking about this, and I think about those episodes, I still get this tight feeling on my chest. And it's been really a long time. I mean, you know my story, right? So it's really been a long time since I even heard from her or saw her or whatever. But just thinking about these episodes, it just gives me the creeps again.
Yeah. Now, and I think also what you just said is really important is identifying where you feel these feelings in your body, because that comes, even though our brains work like within 2 seconds or something like that, like the feeling, the brain, and then we're all in the brain, right? If you recognize this feeling in your body, it's a sign of, okay, something's up. I need to stop and think I need to stop and check in with myself, right? So it's good to know where you feel that. Like you just said, you feel it in your chest. Camille, I think you were going to say something.
Yeah, I guess I'm gonna leave my camera off because I feel like this is a segment for me. But I just feel like this has come up a lot recently with just like realizing that my parents never really like like I had a meltdown in my car the other day because I was like, oh my God, like thinking about it, I'm like, oh my God, my parents have never really asked like how I feel like
Mhm.
growing up.
Mhm.
Like my feelings really didn't matter. It's just kind of this do as you're told type thing. And it's just like fascinating that, you know, your emotional state is not cared for or mattered. And I think I even remember, like, I don't know if it was my brother or my dad or something kind of saying, like, I grew up in the church as well, but it's like, your feeling, it wasn't kind of like your feelings don't matter, but it was like, don't trust your feelings
Right. Suck it
type.
up.
Yeah. Like, don't trust your feelings. And so it's like the amount of years that I just kind of suppress and people please, it's in my blood, my DNA at this point. So, um, to unravel that, it just takes a lot of work.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Out of curiosity, did anybody's parents ask them how they felt in childhood?
I mean, definitely not mine.
No, not
No,
really.
No.
not that I recall, no.
What was the question, Flora?
Did your parents ask you how you felt about any particular thing in childhood? Did they sit with you and ask you about your feelings? Like, yeah, no, mine didn't either. So Camille, you're not alone. I think
Sure.
most of our parents didn't know, didn't understand, and were trying their best to survive in the world. And if I was in control, I would definitely make sure that people went through some sort of class before they became parents. Being a parent, they just hand you the kid in the hospital and they're like, bye. You're like, what? Like, aren't you going to come home with me and help me with this? So, it's,
My mom goes, because I talked with her recently, and she's like, "Well, she goes, you guys don't come with a manual,
yeah.
She's like, I did the best I could with all the kids I had and
Yeah.
situations, and you logically understand and know that your parents love and care about you, but the emotional aspect still is real,
Yeah.
and there's no um I mean, this is a roadmap, but there's no like evidence, if you will. Like there's no physical, I don't know how to
Yeah, yeah,
explain it.
no, you're right. And
Like
I
there's
really appreciate you make a really, really important point, and probably the biggest point, right? Is that a lot of us, most of us, don't know how to access, process our emotions. And it comes from childhood. And most of our parents meant well. And so, I talk to a lot of people, and myself included for a very long time, by the way. But nothing happened in my childhood. I had a good childhood. Everything was good. It was fine, like nothing was really wrong. Like I didn't get abused, I didn't get hit, and no horrible, like chaotic thing happened. But why am I like this? Or why did this happen? And you can, this isn't about blaming our parents. I mean, unless they deserve to be blamed in certain cases, but like, this isn't about blaming our parents. They didn't know better, but this is about recognizing that we didn't get the things that we needed in order to be healthy uh, adults, or emotionally healthy adults, I should say.
I really appreciated the way Camille phrased that,
Mhm.
saying, her parents did the best they could, trying to survive and just be parents.
Mhm.
And it's funny, Flora, because I I am I I've got 5 kids, and feel like I was a pretty savvy dad. Um, but I don't know that I ever, even though I I operate more out of my heart than my head, um, which served me well in my work. But I don't know that I ever asked my kids, how does that make you feel? How are
Yeah.
you processing your emotions because of fill in the blank, right?
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
that's pretty
Yeah.
convincing.
Yeah. I thank you. Thank you for saying that and sharing that. This is, that's the subconscious programming, right? It's like we realize we should talk about emotions. We know that they're important. And then we don't even do it with the people closest to us because it doesn't even occur to you that you should. It doesn't even like cross your mind because you were never taught that. You never saw it. You never watched it happen. So how would you even know to do that? You wouldn't. How would your body know that that was the right next step? And that is how deeply these programs are set in, including every time I, give a hug to a guy that I don't
Yeah.
want to hug.
My current girlfriend, one of the things that she says that she really appreciates, and women have told me this, is that I'm a good listener and I ask good, thoughtful questions. Um, and I was just thinking about the phone call, the FaceTime phone call I had last night with my girlfriend, and it would have been so rich for me, something she was talking about that was going on in her own life, to say, emotionally, what emotions is spring up? How are you processing those?
Hmm.
And I can see how valuable part of good, healthy communication that is to ask that question.
Yeah, yeah, and I can't say enough about how much safety it creates, because it's not, what the male like. Typically, the male response is to take action, to do something, to fix. The female is typically more in her emotions, right? And just wants to express the emotion and doesn't necessarily need to fix it per se. They just need it validated and recognized. And men need that too, but we've gotten, far, far away from that societally. So creating that space for both of you to share just how you feel, right? Without having to do anything about it is something I recommend, very much, right? But also hard to create because you have to have a willing partner that's capable of it.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Sure.
And this goes back to something I think Marcel was saying. I'm
Mhm.
not sure it's the same thing, but um, I had a um, interaction where I've got four boys, one daughter, and I had an interaction with my daughter yesterday that I think um, I should have had a more. It was via text,
Mhm.
but I think I should have had a more emotional, heartbreaking response to that. I
Mhm.
didn't
Mhm.
screenshotted it, sent it to my girlfriend, and we were talking about it, and she said, I'm amazed at how well you're taking this, coping with this, and I wonder how much of that goes back to the survival. Be nice, don't be selfish, don't make waves.
And
Um,
there's I think what people do also is you don't want to see someone upset, so you say something to wrap it up, right? You kind of just like say like, no, it's gonna be okay, everything's fine. Don't worry about it. Like, it's fine, everything's okay, you know? And rather than again like validating the experience of the person, right? And I want to say with your kids, it's never too late. You can call her, you can say, I thought about it. or with anyone you care about, quite frankly, I don't feel like I gave you the right response. Let's talk more, or whatever, whatever feels appropriate. But the thing, as anxious people, I think we know this, right? And we know that we can reach out again. We naturally do. Avoidant people don't really know that, right? They don't understand that it's welcome. And that like anybody kind of usually secure or anxious would welcome additional conversation, would welcome more unpacking, usually, So it's an important note, I think, like for people who are avoidant, but definitely something I think anxious people have a lot of access to. And one other like important part of this conversation, this survival part, and there's many more, I'm sure we can dig into like certain things we were told as kids, but it's your job to take care of your siblings, right? And so a lot of times this is a burden placed on older siblings or the responsible sibling. And the messaging is, if anything is wrong with them, it's your fault. It's your responsibility, right? If they do anything wrong, if they do bad in school, if they get into a fight, if they don't clean, like it's your problem, right? So it adds not just the one responsibility you have to take care of yourself, but now you have to be a role model, and now you have to take care, and now you have to help mom, and now you have to, play parent, right? And I'll talk about that part a little more in a moment. So, all right. So how does this show up in our attachment styles? So we all know, as anxious people, we're typically forgetting ourselves in order to keep the relationship, right? Sorry, one second. Let me just see. I have a few things written. I want to make sure I cover the right things. So because our nervous system is constantly scanning for rejection, we are doing everything along the way to keep people happy so that they stay with us, completely and totally minimizing ourselves, how we feel, our needs. And for those of us who have been very anxious, we all have had this experience. And people pleasing becomes a way of making them dependent on you, Jim, in a sense. This is something you're doing by bringing over this thing and by being overly helpful. It's like a manipulative, subconscious mechanism to make yourself needed, right? Dismissive avoidance, people please.
Real quick, Flora.
Yeah.
Did you start by saying our subconscious is constantly scanning for signs of rejection?
Yes. It's abandonment, rejection.
Gosh, that's good. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. We're, as anxious people, we're hypervigilant, right? We're always like noticing like the slightest little change of pattern, the slightest little change of like mood. We're completely and totally hyper-focused outside of ourselves to keep safety, to hold on to safety, right?
That's good. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. So for avoidant people, people please. They are actually one of the hugest category of people pleasers, believe it or not, which doesn't always sound like it fits, but people please because they don't know how to be intimate, right? So instead of like being honest and sharing about how they feel and who they are, they do things for you. And again, it's in order to be needed, in order to not be rejected, in order to stay in the connection without actually having to show up in the connection honestly and intimately, right? And the fearful avoidant person who is often going back and forth, like, what do you call it? Becoming very intense, really wanting the connection, then pulling back from the connection. They then are managing chaos by but the chaos they're creating by people pleasing. So they go hot and cold, and then they're like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. Let me do this for you. Let me, take care of these things, and I'll be really nice for a while until I do the thing again." Marcel, did you want to say something?
Yeah, this is actually I'm just looking for the translation of a particular word. Just give me 1 second, because I don't know how to say it in English. Okay, so my ex-girlfriend, she used to be, is that a word? Beautician?
Beautician, yeah. Cosmetologist, beautician, yeah.
Yeah. So she
Mhm.
was a beautician, and in this kind of circumstances, what she typically would do is give me an entire massage and treatment and whatever. And at the time, now I know that this
Mhm.
was her way of like an act of service. But at the time, I wasn't aware at all why she did this.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
just thought she wanted to be nice to me or whatever.
Uh-huh.
But in hindsight, it was always after she had
Uh-huh.
been a little bit of a pain in the ass towards
Right,
me.
right, right.
Yeah. But there was a conflict or whatever. So this
Uh-huh.
is really a classic example of that.
Yeah. I love that. That's great. Yeah, I mean, this is how we do these things, right? We try and make up for things by going back to our default strategies of how we learned to keep connection, right? And for avoidance of either kind, it is usually going to be acts of service. So, especially dismissive avoidance, the way that you know that they like you is that they're doing things for you. They're showing up, they're taking care of things. Anxious people, have all do everything and, completely suppress their needs. But dismissive avoidance, they're not going to like talk a lot, they're not going to use words of affirmation, they're not going to get very intimate or committed, but they will do a lot of things for you. And ultimately we're all functioning from the wound of I am not lovable as I am, so I have to show you my worth by doing or by being agreeable or by making your life easier in some way.
Yeah.
And so,
It's
go ahead.
also a typical pattern. I don't know if anybody recognizes the typical pattern was after, let's say, there was like a very open, intimate night. Yeah, where my ex-partner also she she had these moments where she was really open in talking about her childhood. She had, just for context, she had two parents um, that gave her everything financially, but emotionally not, because they were alcoholics. You
Mm-hmm.
say that? They were
Yeah,
drinking a
yeah,
lot?
alcoholic. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. And she had these nights where she completely opened up
Hmm.
about these experiences. And then, but just in general, yeah, when there were open and intimate moments during a particular night, the day after, almost shut down, ice cold.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. It's what we call a vulnerability hangover.
Okay,
Yeah, yeah. A
does it
lot of
work?
when people are avoidant and then they share or they feel like they've overshared, and anxious people, can have this too, right? And we can get into a side note of this, but anxious people think they are emotional, but they are reactive to emotion and not necessarily emotionally connected, right?
And to link this to people pleasing, when an avoidant opens up and is vulnerable, are they then actually people pleasing?
No,
No, okay.
no, they're feeling safe, they're feeling comfortable, and if they're really opening up, they're doing so because then they go into that shutdown mode, and that they have a hangover from it, and that's when they might pull away. A lot of times after being vulnerable is a time that they pull away, and the length of that and the degree of that depends on the avoidant. The implicit messages here are, I'll say yes and you'll approve of me. I'll fix your problems and you'll need me. I'll never disagree and you'll never reject me. But we already know how that works. Marcel just gave us a whole story about how, he always said yes. It didn't work out for him. I have like a story on this. I dated this guy, not dated, we were friends. We had gone on a couple of dates. I told him I wanted to be friends. He agreed. And we actually became friends. A lot of times it doesn't really go that way, but we did. We hung out, we went to things, we played pickleball. And we hung out several times, no romantic anything. And he was pretty amazing, right? Like he would do everything. He was so like thoughtful and nurturing. Like we would be sitting on the couch and I would cough, and without even like looking at me, he would just pick up my glass and hand me my water, He would, if I said I wanted to do something, he had it booked and it was done. If I said I wanted to go somewhere, he would buy the tickets. Like there was no, it was like, I was like, wow, this is a really good guy. And as we became friends, I was like, maybe, maybe I feel different. I don't know. And so we booked a weekend. Okay, you guys ready for this? We booked a weekend getaway, okay, to go to a hotel, stay overnight in a hotel, huh?
I'm getting out my popcorn for this story.
No, this is like a popcorn story. We we book he books the hotel. He sends me, I tell him like we could go to the spa. He's like, oh my God, I totally want to go to the spa. Books the spa, books the hotel, sends me options of restaurants, drives the car, does every last possible thing. And when we're about to get intimate, he says, I have a girlfriend. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
What?
Well, I wasn't.
Yeah.
That was a cliffhanger.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was like, that was my reaction, by the way. What, and then we started unpacking, like, what do you mean? Like, how could you be here? How could you be on a trip, right? You have a girlfriend, you're like, we're on a week, but we're friends, and I don't know, we've hung out, and I didn't think, and I thought I could hold the boundary, and I didn't, I didn't realize, and I didn't think that just because I was doing this, that you were getting the wrong idea. And, and he was genuinely he wasn't a jerk. He wasn't like this manipulative guy trying to but he didn't know how to say no along the way. Along the way, he didn't know how to say no. And because, I knew him already, he's an older brother. He comes from an ethnic family where, he really did have to take care of his siblings. And it was like all part and parcel. He had to behave. He had to, do a lot of things in order to kind of, and we had talked about all this, by the way. We had this conversation already, because, this is what I do. And it just never occurred to him, right? And the whole time I knew him and I'm friends with him, I'm like, how did you never tell me that you have a girlfriend? Like, we're friends, we're hanging out, like, we could have talked about it. And he was just like, I don't know, I just don't talk about that stuff with people.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. Is like, if he's yes all the way along, what stops him in that moment?
Because that's, everybody has a boundary, everybody has a threshold, everybody has their own, whatever their own lines are, and so you don't know until you hit the line, and so
Oof.
What's wild, right, is having had that experience is just like, yeah, just seeing how people can hide what's important to them, or like not show up with all the things that are important to them. Maybe, and I would guess, right? I'm guessing because I don't really know, but maybe he thought like, if I knew, or if he talked about his girlfriend, then I wouldn't want to hang out with him, And he, you know, he was enjoying the interactions and the friendships. I don't think he has a lot of friends here. He's kind of new in town, you know. So again, it was just,
that, but as a man, I can get that
uh-huh,
thought actually,
yeah,
because there are actually women,
uh-huh,
also in my experience, who withdraw as a friend once you're in a relationship.
mm-hmm.
I've experienced that.
Yes, 100%. 100%. And, you know, there's part of it, you know, you're trying to be respectful to the relationship too, which had I known, I would have done, right? Like, had I understood this, the importance of this relationship to him, I would have, you know, I wouldn't have suggested we go for a weekend, right?
No, that's yeah.
And Flora, you said you didn't feel like he was trying to hide anything. Um,
Well, yes, I mean, ultimately, yes, he was trying to, obviously, he was hiding it, but he wasn't hiding it from a place of, I don't think, like being manipulative and trying to hook up with me.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, like he was hiding because he didn't want to lose the connection. He was hiding because he wanted to be accepted. He was hiding because it didn't come up, right? That's another excuse that people, I don't know, it just never came up, you know, like, and then furthermore, another part that I think is also important about the avoidant attachment styles that I asked him, I said, did you run this by anyone? Did you ask your friends? He has sisters. Did you ask your sisters, like, if this was a good idea? He was like, no, I don't talk to my sisters about stuff like that. You know, no, I didn't ask anyone. Right.
Wow.
And so, yeah, it's like, had you just asked anyone, you know, somebody would have said this is not a good idea, you know?
Yeah, don't think that's a good idea, man. I don't
Yeah.
think that's
So that's, you know, another important thing. But, you know, I also say this to say that, what, you know, another like part of this that I want you guys to think about as you go on in your journey is it takes, this is what dating is, kind of, right? I mean, we were friends, but we kind of dated, whatever. Like, this is what dating is. It's like you have to go through the motions, you have to go through the steps, and you have to hit those certain walls in order to see who somebody is, right? And if I was completely head over heels with him at this point, like I would have been at some other part of my life, I would have gotten really hurt, right? I would have gotten really hurt about it. But this is the process. And so, you know, at like the point that it happened, I was like surprised, you know, the same way all you guys are surprised, but like not heartbroken, you know, not completely lost because I'm slow burning. I'm taking my time. I'm getting to know people. I know that I don't really know anyone until we're hitting some major friction points, right? Until we have a reason to until we're like in some sort of conflict potentially or something, right? Because then I'm really getting to see who you are. Then I'm really getting to understand how you work, right? But when everything in the beginning is great and happy and people are yesing you to death because that's what they do, that's what they know how to do, it doesn't mean that they're apparently, it doesn't mean that they're necessarily interested, right? And, you know, another point from this was actions do not speak louder than words in this case. You know, when you're a people pleaser, or when you're with a people pleaser, actions do not speak louder than words. Actions are your natural, like, again, your programming, right? So for some people, it's just programming. It's not because they like you. It's not because they want to be with you. It's not because of any of that. It's because they are, you know, they're just built that way, you know, from childhood. So
yeah.
take your time, really is what it comes down to. All right. So how do we build authentic connection and how do we stop people pleasing? And Camille, I'd love to hear from you on this point because you've been talking about how hard it is, and I'm interested in what things you're doing that are working for you. if you're there.
I'm here. I guess elaborate more on what you're trying to say. 'Cause
Well, yeah,
I'm reading the slide here, but
okay, it's okay. You don't have to like go from the slide. I'm just interested in what's you know, you said that you've started saying no and people are reacting in a certain way. Like how are you moving through that?
not eloquently. I'd say that particular instance was, I think I tend to like get angry, you
Mm,
know,
mhm,
like I react and then I
mhm,
don't like that reaction because that's
mhm,
not nice and that's not um you know who I am, if you will.
mhm.
Um so I definitely struggle with that, like reactive, like it is who I am, but like I don't like being mean. I don't like being aggressive or whatever. So like trying to like express myself and stand firm
Mhm.
is really difficult. And then I guess the other, what was the other point I wanted to make? Um oh, that I also will, I don't see, I don't know if I am avoidant or I am something else or whatever, because I think that I tend to just shut people out then at that point,
Mhm.
because I'm like, I don't know how to deal with this. So I just don't want to talk to you. I just don't want to deal with this. Like, I just will either isolate or, you know, and then just avoid it. Yeah. Just avoid
Yeah.
the issue entirely because it's just easier than um, sitting with those feelings of like this relationship or this friendship or whatever might not work out.
Thank you. That dude, perfect, right? And so what you're essentially saying is that change is messy, right? This process is called, you know, people say the work, and we're all doing the work, right? But you're not doing the work if it's comfortable. You're not doing the work if it's easy for you to do. You're not doing the work if you have no problem saying no. And so that's not the work, right? It's only work if it's uncomfortable. It's only work if it feels like you're doing something wrong, but you know it's right, but you're going to, you know, and then you do it anyway. And so the part of the reason that you retreat, Camille, and go like into avoidance is again because you were never taught to deal with these feelings, right? You were never taught that like, oh, I can feel something and I don't have to run away. I can just communicate with somebody about it, you know? I can tell them I'm working on myself and I'm working on something and I'm working on saying no, and I hope they can be graceful as I try this new thing, right? Because we treat ourselves like our parents did and like we were raised, you know? And so all that messaging of, oh, just be nice, and that guilt is all your parents, the church, school, whoever else, like, you know, shamed you for having feelings and emotions and expressing them. Marcel,
Yeah, and not everybody appreciates it when you say no.
right? Right? Yeah, people get
But
offended.
that's also a clear message then.
Yes. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It is a clear message, and when you're changing, it is also important to recognize that it's going to affect people around you and it's going to be confronting for them, and having also grace to understand that um, you know, it's a shift for them too. It's not just a shift for you, you know, and seeing especially, you know, people that are really like in your life, seeing um, how they respond to your change, right? If They come around at
Nice.
some point, great. If they don't, then it says enough, you know?
And it's funny, like now I'm on this journey, and feel like I'm, changing and healing. And again, as you mentioned, it's messy and it's non-linear, so to say. It's funny how some people that I haven't seen or spoken to for a very long while all of a sudden send me messages out of the blue saying like, wow, you seem to do well. And people who I thought are very close to me, they are a little bit more reluctant to actually acknowledge that, and sometimes they seem a little bit envious.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's strange how you see people respond to your healing journey.
Yeah. Well, it's very confronting for people that are in your life.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because then they have to say what was wrong with how we were. If something's wrong with
Yeah.
something wrong with you, then something must be wrong with me. And now you're changing. You want me to change? I don't want to change. Like I have to change. What, should I change? Maybe I should, you know what I mean? And it throws them into a whole, it makes people question themselves.
No,
You know?
absolutely. To your point, to give an example, um, prior to me joining the coaching with you, um, I was already, and I'm still with a local coach here.
Uh-huh.
And back in the days when I was with my ex, she knew I was doing this, yeah,
Uh-huh.
because I was already aware that I needed to change some patterns, and she never wanted to talk about it. She never wanted to listen to it, and she even sometimes resented me
Mhm.
for doing it. Like, oh yeah, and now you feel really well again, eh? You feel better than me, yeah? No, really, I got these literal words from
Yeah.
her,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
and I never understood. But how can my journey? Yeah, I'm trying to become a better person.
Uh-huh.
How the hell can you see that as something scary or bad? I didn't understand it.
Yeah. And then oftentimes from that, somebody you care about, you said it was your wife, sorry, that was reactive like that,
Not my ex-girlfriend.
your ex-girlfriend. So, you care about her, and then you start shrinking yourself. You start making what you're doing, these positive changes you're making small. You don't talk to her about it.
Yeah,
You don't bring it
I
up.
really, I was kind of feeling embarrassed and ashamed for becoming a better person, also a better partner for her. And that
Right.
was like, that was total self-abandonment. Then I was
Yeah.
at my lowest of low.
Yeah. 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 Yeah, and this is how the cycle repeats, because again, we were told to get love in childhood, you have to make everybody else happy, right? So we've abandoned ourselves, and it becomes this forever process.
I even
And then,
wanted to stop the coaching.
huh?
At a certain point in time, I even wanted to stop the coaching because of the negative responses I got from her.
That's
How
yeah.
crazy is that?
Well, I think it's crazy, or but like in a good way, that you continued on your journey and you ended up here, Camille, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say that what was my point? My point was that in this, I guess, recognizing your authentic self, or recognizing that you're people pleasing, that it's like, I guess I just feel bad about like advocating for myself, because I feel like a fraud. I feel like a liar, that uh like this person doesn't even really know who I am. Like, or my, whether it's relationships or friendships or whatever, that it's like when you're doing that, like that people pleasing behavior, that it's like you're like I don't know the boundary, because there's good in like doing nice things for people and like helping people and taking care of people, whatever. But like I definitely don't have a good boundary with especially like when you really want to be friends with somebody or you really want a relationship with somebody, that like, yeah, I would go to the ends of the earth for somebody. But like I don't really know where the line is sometimes. And I don't know, just like trying to like assert myself or really stand up for myself really is difficult. It is difficult at times because it's like I really do just feel bad, or if I am changing a behavior or saying no, that it's like, yeah, I realize that I've been saying yes all these times, and I realize that I've been this other person, but it's like I don't want to keep exhausting myself. I don't want to keep uh doing something that is hurting me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Type
And
things.
so, what I want you to think about, or what to recognize, is that it's trial and error, and that's what I mean by it's messy. Because when you're changing, a lot of times when we're going through this process, we'll go from never setting boundaries to setting crazy harsh boundaries, right? Neither one is good, right? But we have to sometimes do that in order to calibrate back to the middle and back to feeling what feels good. And sometimes the only way that saying yes isn't all the time isn't working. How do you know that saying no all the time isn't working? You have to say no all the time in order to figure that out, right? And then you can find you find your way to the middle oftentimes. But with a lot of this, when you're doing the work, a lot of times we isolate, right? Because we don't want to deal with the same things we've been dealing with. And so we end up isolating ourselves. And oftentimes we isolate to the point where we're like, well, this isn't healthy either. Now,
Yeah, exactly.
and this doesn't feel good, right? So there's a lot of like extremes that happen. But just know that you're finding your middle, and it's okay. And it's okay to be messy. And the people who love you and care about you and deserve you will be okay with it. Will be like, yeah, you were a little bit of a jerk, but it's okay. Like, let's move on, and will not take it personally, not take it personally. And the people who really do take it personally and who can't handle you changing or this new version of you are not people that are meant to stay with you.
Yeah. Well, Flora, maybe, and thanks Camille for sharing, maybe I can share how I feel I reach a boundary.
Yeah, please do.
I actually feel that physically.
Yeah.
I feel it here,
Uh-huh.
and the center of where my plexus is.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
When it starts to cramp like this, and also my shoulders go towards my ears.
Uh-huh.
That's how I feel. Okay, I need to stop because I'm at risk of saying yes where I actually mean no. So it's a physical sensation that I started to recognize whenever I was at risk of people pleasing.
Amazing. Camille, do you notice it anywhere in your body?
I think I'm working on like paying attention to that, because I'm really good at shoving that down or ignoring it. But I would say probably my throat,
Okay.
that it's like a lump in my throat of
Yeah.
like, I want to say no, but I'm going to say yes anyways.
Amazing. Yeah. So that's a good place to start, at knowing that this is what's coming up, right?
Yeah.
And then you get to make a choice. Will I do it anyway, or will I try saying no and see what happens?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you,
Yes.
Marcel, and thank you, Camille, for that. So yeah, I mean, finding it, you know, we should add to this list, finding it in your body. That is definitely one of the most important things to start with, to start listening to your body, because when you feel physical, even if you get like people are emotionally disconnected, can usually identify the feeling in the body, like that there's a feeling in the body. And that is a great place to start feeling, you know, and start linking those feelings, physical or emotional, to what is happening, right? Marcel, did you want to say something?
No, something wrong with the screen. You guys can still see me?
Yeah, we can see you.
I have a black screen, so anyways.
There.
Yeah, I don't know what's happening here. Yeah, just another thing. When I was in this previous relationship, all of a sudden, I used to I was having this physical pain. So here on the upper ribs, let's say, and it was like a band which was going from my center of my back to my plexus, and it became so bad that I actually did a lot of, let's say, physical checkups. Um, we thought that my rib was broken, it was bruised. Um, so a particular physician even thought that I might have the C word. Yeah. So it was really, really bad. I was getting super anxious. And let me tell you something. This was just the physical outing of the stress that I was having in this previous relationship, because when that relationship ended, the pain ended a week later. No, this is no joke.
Yeah, I believe that 100%. I've had clients that have, like, after our work together, they don't have hip problems anymore, they don't have back problems. It This is, you know, the body keeps the score. It's like when your brain and you know, when you're not recognizing, when you're not cognizant of the impact that this stuff is having on you, when it's all getting shoved into the subconscious, it has to go somewhere, and then it goes into the rest of the body and it causes pain. And this is why a lot of people that have difficult lives, difficult childhoods, or are completely disconnected from themselves also get sick. And it happens, and all these, you know, disease is disease, but, you know, a lot of, like, these weird autoimmune things or these pains that come up kind of out of nowhere are not as real as not as physically real as we think they are. They're often emotional things that aren't processed. So that is a really big, big point to all of this in general, you know, all of this work in general. So, you know, we for sure feeling it in your body is really important. And while that's happening, right, you want to pause. One thing you want to do before saying yes or no to anything, give yourself space, right? So it's really important to not feel like you have to answer right away. It's really important to not feel like you have to give an immediate response. Take a moment, take a breath, take a beat, and ask yourself, like, am I doing this because I'm obligated? Am I doing this because I want something back from it? And where possible, practice saying no. Like, you may not be able to say the big no's right away, but you can definitely say the little no's. And, you know, these days we have all these, like, very cute ways of saying no. You don't have to say no, period, right? Because that sounds heavy to a lot of people, but you can say, I can't talk right now. Can I call you later? I prefer tea instead of coffee, right? There's, like, a lot of positive ways to reflect, to say no, but not seem like you're saying no, right? If that is something that is hard for you to do. Only give what you want to, truly, and what you expect nothing for. You know, a lot of people will say this about money, like, they will say that I never loan money if I with an expectation of getting it back. I only give money that, like, if I lose it, I'll be fine and I don't, I'm not worried about it. And that is really like the same way we should be giving in general, right? Like if it takes nothing out of me and I'm happy to do it, I'm happy to do it. But if it's going to take something out of me, if I have to interrupt my own goals, interests, activities, or whatever, I don't really have to say no. I don't really have to say yes, And the biggest thing, I think that's part of this that, we've touched on here, is, sorry, Marcel, you're back. The biggest thing that is kind of inherent in all of this is the learning to tolerate other people's feelings, right? Because they're not always going to be receptive. They're not always going to be kind about it. They're not, to your point, Camille, just because somebody doesn't react the way that you wanted to, it's important to understand that their feelings are not your responsibility and doesn't have to push you to hide yourself, right? There's like a certain sense of shame that comes in hiding because you said no. Like you're ashamed of yourself that you said no, so you now have put yourself in timeout. And so that, that's not going to get you anywhere either, right? Because now we're at a different extreme. So yeah, that is probably the most important part to understand, that we are not responsible for other people's feelings. We are not responsible for how they take something we say, assuming we're, communicating in our best possible way. So that's.
Do you have any advice on how to not go there? That shame?
Well, it's a process of reminding yourself that it's not your responsibility, right? And I don't know if we've done shadow yet with you, but we'll definitely, if we haven't, we'll do the shadow work, although I feel like we have. But it is a process of understanding where that guilt is coming from too, right? Because that guilt isn't yours. As humans, we aren't born with guilt, right? Like we're born trying to be accepted and survive within our family units. And then they make us feel guilty about whatever, they teach us to feel guilty. And so if you didn't have that patterning, if you didn't have that programming, who would you be? And what would it look like to live without that guilt?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's it for the presentation part, guys. Anything else that anybody wants to share, or any thoughts or closing remarks? Marcel, I see you're unmuted.
No, yeah, it was well, thank you first of all. Thank you everybody for sharing your experiences. It's just yeah, the process is messy. It's non-linear. You go up and down.
Yeah.
And there will be good days, better days, and days when you feel worse. But I would just say, as a general remark, closing remark, just continue the journey.
I feel like once you start, you don't have a choice,
Well, I would. Well, if you make that effort, it would be a shame to stop it at a certain point in time, right? You finish the journey.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing today too. Jim, I see you're unmuted. How do you feel about what you're doing today now after this?
I mean, I thank you for this program, obviously, and thank you to everyone else for sharing. Um, I feel like maybe I have a little bit more exploration to do because one thing that I don't necessarily what I don't necessarily feel is I don't feel the saying yes when I want to say no. But clearly, I need to examine my motives and uh, what I really expect to play out from my actions. But yeah, I've definitely picked up some valuable things uh, from Camille and from Marcel and Noah, especially. And I just wanted to thank everybody as somebody who's doing this for the first time.
Amazing. Thank you. Yeah, listen, everybody is different. I also want to remind us, right? We don't, I always say this, like, we all know how to lose weight, right? Like, we all know that if we eat less, we're going to lose weight. But there's 10,000 different diets on the market because everybody's a little different. Everybody needs a little bit of a different something. And, while some people may really feel it in their body and it becomes really obvious, for other people, it may be an exploration of what is it that I'm really seeking in return? Will I be upset if I don't get the appropriate appreciation or the appropriate response that I want? And if the answer to those questions is yes, then it's worth exploring. Like, what am I really doing here? Why am I really doing this for this person, right? Because
Yeah,
if I don't get that reaction I want, then I'm just going to be upset. And a lot of times, anxious people will do this a million times over, be upset anyway, get a little bit of a breadcrumb, and then do it again.
yeah. If I can hijack just a little bit
Yeah,
further for
please
a minute,
go. Yeah.
I want to rewind to your story about your weekend getaway. When you were telling the story, my feeling as a a straight guy who considers himself to be a good guy and someone with integrity, etc. I will just say what I heard was that your friend was maybe having a little bit of a moral lapse, a moral,
Sure.
you don't end up in a hotel room with your female friend who you went on dates with by accident
I
and
agree.
just happened to not
Yes.
mention. But the funny thing is, as I was saying this, and he just didn't mention he was had a girlfriend and didn't mention you to his plan to his sisters, etc. While I was sort of reacting to that and sort of saying, yeah, that doesn't pass the smell test.
Mhm.
I am literally involved with a woman who uh, keeps me sort of off to the side. And, there's sort of without getting into too many details, it's like there's not a time when we are together with other people. So I'm criticizing this person who I don't know, this guy who you went
Yeah.
on this getaway with. But at the same time, I'm literally knowingly putting myself in that same situation of being somebody, quote, on the side.
Yeah.
Um,
I thank you, because yes, this is what we do, right? We see it in others and then we do it ourselves anyway. And I do want to be, yes, 100%. Yes, he knew what he was doing. Yes, he was testing his own, interest or desire probably in all these things. But what I want to point to, especially in terms of this conversation, is a lot of the natural ways that he was going about it, the booking of the things, the planning the things,
mhm.
it was like nothing to him, right? Like, this is just how he is. Like, oh, you want to do something? Okay, I'll find all the things. You want to like go to, yeah, I'll find, like that was just all natural, inherent process for him because he had an older brother, because he was, you know, raised in a family where he had to take care of everyone and consider everybody's needs, you know. And the not speaking is the avoidant part. The not communicating is the avoidant part. Because yes, I think he was having a moral dilemma, right? But he never once said, we should talk
Right.
about something, you know?
Right.
And that part is the avoidant part, right? That doesn't say that it's okay. It's just, I can handle this. I can handle it by myself. And I'm just going to like, you know, go through it on my own and handle the whole thing.
Mhm.
And then, you know, until it got to where it got, you know? So, so yes, I agree. I'm not stupid. You know?
No, I didn't. But
No,
I was
no.
just saying,
I
it
know.
was the realization within myself that I was literally having this strong of an opinion about it, and then suddenly it hit me like, "No, you're doing the exact same thing.
Yeah,
You're
yeah,
willingly doing this."
no. Exactly,
So,
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, and it's again, it's very easy. Even as a coach, like I'm far from perfect, right? But I can see all these patterns, you know. And so yeah, it's this is the subconscious, and this is why it's so important to understand our subconscious, understand how it runs the show for us, and be able to change, you know, the behavior as you need to, but also be able to recognize it when it comes up.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And thank you again.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you. Noah, Camille, do you guys want to say anything before we hop off?
Really,
Mm,
really valuable stuff. I mean, there's a lot of resources that are available today that you have to pay for, and some that are free. And this is extraordinarily helpful, and really appreciate your wisdom and insight, and appreciate everybody's input as well and sharing. Really appreciate how open everybody's been.
Yeah,
Very,
yeah.
very, very
Thank
good.
you. Yeah,
Well, thanks, Flora.
thank you. Camille?
yeah, I don't really have anything additional to say, but yes,
Thank you.
thank you. I
Yeah,
appreciate it. It's
yeah,
a
I
good
know.
one.
And yes, it was a good one. And it was a good one because you guys really participated. So thank you for that. Yeah, you guys are awesome. I love doing this, and I thank you for showing up and showing up for yourselves more than anything. And I will see you guys in the next one.
All right.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, everybody.
Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye.
Great day, everybody. Good weekend. Thanks, Flora.
Bye. Same. Bye.